Going to do our West breakdown. We did our East last week, so if you haven't seen that, go through that. Playoff bound or bounced. We'll start with the Utah Jazz Pro. This one's an obvious one. It's bound. They'll be close, in my opinion, to being the best regular season team again. I think they have a very solid team, very good regular season team with the grind of the regular season. They'll win a lot of games. They'll be up there in the West. Can they surge in the playoffs, though? That's the big question around the Utah Jazz. They've had great regular seasons the last couple of years, but they seem to get bounced. Can they adapt to the small ball that teams generally go to with Rudy Gobert in the game? Can Rudy play versus those small ball lineups in a playoff series is a big question. They are the beacon of consistency. They do really, really well day to day, like I said. I don't mind the Hassan Whiteside pickup, but he's a very similar player to Rudy in a way, where he's a shot blocking, rebounding big. He's not going to bring you a lot of perimeter play. So if teams do go small, you probably can't even play him that much. The Rudy Gay pickup, I think that helps a little bit. He's another scoring threat when he's healthy. They can get a bucket with his size and length. So I think he'll help him in that capacity. But look, if they don't go deep into the playoffs, we thought this roster would be tweaked already, but it's not. But this is probably their last hurrah to push all their chips to the table to try and, get to a championship series. Pro, what are your thoughts on the Utah Jazz?
Bogues, I sort of mirror everything you just said as far as the lineup. They're consistent. They could kill you in the regular season. They could hurt you in the playoffs. But then they get hurt when they get deeper into the playoffs. I think having the offensive firepower, to really get by teams and like Donovan Mitchell, obviously he's got to be clicking, and then those other guys got to make shots, right? Like, Conley's injury hurt them last year in the playoffs for sure. But like Bogdanovich, Ingles, those guys can make shots, and Clarkson, he's either really on or really not. So just having that consistent, they don't really have that consistent, like really good number two offensively. They've got a bunch of guys that are good players and really solid, but that's sort of what they lack. But I'll tell you, if you're gonna hit any year, Bogues, without with the Clippers, the Lakers going through their shit show they're going through now. Obviously, it's only 2 games, but then obviously the Clippers, you don't know what's gonna happen with Kawhi Leonard. If you're gonna make a run, I think this year is definitely. In the West, this year is definitely going to be the year. Golden State, they got guys coming back, but, you don't know how Clay's going to be, coming back for this season and how that's going to get impacted or affected. But, I really like them. They got a really good coach. They got good players. They got a solid system. They play really well. They share the ball. But I think when it comes down to it in the playoffs, folks, I think having that second go-to scorer consistently is going to be a problem. Gobert struggles a little bit with those small lineups on those switching things and getting by guys sometimes, guys getting by him. And then offensively, not having another shooter on the floor and having him in there in the playoffs is, especially when teams go small, it's an interesting dilemma. They're obviously playoff bound. I just don't know how deep they can go. I don't really see them winning a championship this year. I think they're going to have to make some changes long term if that to happen, but I think they could definitely knock on the door, possibly get to a conference final.
Yeah, I would agree. Hopefully they can prove us wrong, but they are a great team. They're very, very solid, but they can't get over the line when it's crunch time. Denver Nuggets, playoff bound. If Murray gets healthy, I think it'll help, but I see much of the same for Denver as last season, in my opinion. Even with Murray healthy, I don't think their roster's improved that much. I think they'll be a second-round exit team max. I think that's a good year for them. They get to the second round. I don't think they'll get further than that. Jokic's usage is insane. He's so fun to watch. I love everything he does. The other issue is if he gets any kind of an injury or he's out for any amount of games, I don't see them winning anything. So they have a lot of pressure hoisted on the MVP, but He'll take that in stride. He's playing very, very good basketball. But yeah, I just don't see Denver improving too much on what they did last season. I think that's kind of the max for this roster and what they're going to do. Playoff bound, but second round exit. Pro. Yeah,
same, Bogues. I just think with with their situation, I don't know if they have enough shooting around Jokic to a consistent perimeter shooting to go deep. They don't have that other guy that they can go to. They got to rely on him to do everything, pass, score in the post. Shoot the ball. He doesn't really play much defense, but it doesn't really matter. Like, they got a good team. They're solid. They got a good coach. They play hard. They're a team that you root for. You want them to go far, right? And I think, they could possibly get to a conference final, but I could see them winning a round and then going deep in round 2. But, again, I just think they come up with the same problems. They got to get They got to get more shooting. They got to get that. Now, Michael Porter Jr., I mean, he's the one guy that could really make a big leap. I mean, he made a leap last year, but I think he might have another gear that he can go to, another level that he can go to. He's struggling a little bit this year to find his rhythm at only 11 a game, but I could see him sort of really helping this team. But yeah, I don't see them. I don't see them really making a huge run, but I could see them definitely getting into the second round.
Agree. Much of the same. Portland, I got them playoff bound with a caveat. They'll be a play-in team, in my opinion, if they make the playoffs. Look, they can get buckets. They can score with the best of them. They still don't play no defense. Do they make a trade? Does CJ stay? Does Dame stay? They're all the question marks. But if they can just buy into a little bit of defense, which is easier said than done when you don't have defenders, that's a big, big part of it. If they can just get from a bottom 10 team defensively to middle of the pack, they can have a much more successful year. I think they scrape in the playoffs just based on their scoring. They can get buckets. They can shoot you out of the gym on any given night. But as far as making any noise in the playoffs or actually having a performance where they can get to the second or third round, I don't think they will. I think they'll be lucky to get into a playing game this season, and that's kind of their max for me. What do you got?
Folks, if there wasn't a 10, if there wasn't a play-in, I would say they're out. I don't think they're going to finish in the top 8. Possibility of missing, I don't think they upgraded. I think they're the same old story. Like, Lillard and McCollum are going to score. Norman Powell's a good player. But they just don't have enough. This team has played the same way year in and year out. They're an offensive team with a small backcourt. They're a very talented backcourt, but small. And they don't play defense. And it's not, even if they're locked in, they don't really have stoppers defensively. It's different. You could be as locked in as you want, have every defensive coverage in the world. You could watch you could watch any of the top defensive teams and try to emulate what they do. They just don't have it. They're going to need to make that trade. If they can do that CJ for Ben, it's not a perfect trade, but Ben at least brings a different type of player, a player that could stop people, a player that could play defense. You've got enough offense with Lillard and Powell. You got decent shooting. Covington's could shoot it just a little bit. You got Tony Snell coming off the bench, but they're gonna need to make a move, or this. I just don't see this team really doing much. You got a rookie coach. It's not like you're a rookie coach taking over. It's not a Steve Kerr rookie coach. It's not a Steve Nash rookie coach deal where you have all these horses that you could just roll into playoffs and then you just got to figure out on the fly, but you have enough talent to really, to not really worry about a lot of the development in your coaching. You could sort of learn as you go and you'll have success regardless. This is a team that you have to grind out. Terry Stotts is one of the better coaches in the league, and they struggle to get by. I don't see this really being much different. I probably see them as a 9 or a 10 seed. I don't see them getting into the top 8 after I don't think they'll get out of the play-in. And they're going to have to make a trade. I think I could see some major changes coming this way in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, I agree, and watch that space because you can only beat a dead horse so much, and that roster's been kind of the same nucleus for a number of years. It just hasn't got it done. Unfortunately, a lot of that was against the Golden State Warriors, which is just the unfortunate reality of what they had to deal with when they were at their strongest. They ran into us a few times and we bounced them out, and they were a pretty good team then. So who knows what would have been if the Warriors went in their way. The next team, Minnesota, I've got them bounced. Towns. The question I have is Towns going to have to eventually give up the keys to Edwards? It's looking that way. Edwards is looking like he's going to be the guy there. It's just a matter of when, and you factor in that he's a perimeter player. We know how that struggle usually goes when it's perimeter versus big. It usually slides with a perimeter because you're getting the ball more and you're accessible to the ball more on the perimeter. But yeah, I think that one gripe that you hate about whose team is it could play its part here. Edwards definitely not a shy guy, likes to speak out, he's confident. But Towns obviously knows, this is my team right now, blah, blah, blah. So that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. They got some more toughness with Beverly, a few little tweaks to their roster, but I just don't think they have enough yet. Towns hasn't proven to me that he's a winner. Edwards has some fire to him, might win him some games, but I think they're at the end of all this, they'll be playoff bounce, pro.
Yeah, I like them. I think they're making some headway. I do. I think they have a lot of talent, young talent, and unproven. They've got Carl, Towns. I'm not a huge Russell fan, but he does put up numbers, and he is an extra guy you have to worry about on the court if you're facing them. I think Anthony Edwards is a star on that team. I think he's going to be an all-star, at some point of his career, and he's got a lot of talent. like just like you said with the whole my team thing, I think if they stop fighting that and not even worry about it and just go out and play. Right now, you could rely on Towns probably more. You can rely on Edwards probably right now, Edwards will probably show you flashes of brilliance and then sort of have those nights where he's going to be in the tank. I mean, it's his second year. But I think that they have a lot of good talent, with those three guys. Plus, you have like a Koji, and you've got Malik Beasley, and you got Torian Prince. Vanderbilt and Naz Reid have done well in their development program. I could see them sneaking into a 10. I could maybe see them, maybe getting Portland out of that 10 spot. So it's a tough one for me. I'd probably say out, just because they may not have enough. But it wouldn't surprise me if they were in. But I will say they're bounced. But I do like what they're doing. I do like their young talent. I don't know if they're going to make any moves and get Russell or Towns out of town. But, I mean, if you just keep this core together, add a couple more pieces, they've proven that they could develop some young guys that, you didn't expect much out of. So I could see these guys making a little bit of a push for 10, but probably going to get beat out late in the year. But, I sort of like, at least they got some life. They haven't had life in this organization for a while.
Yeah, and they probably just need some stability too. So I like your point about trying to keep the group together for more than a season, because they just don't seem to keep rosters together. They're always making some tweaks and splashes and this and that, Jimmy Butler deal, all that kind of stuff. So maybe they keep it together for a year or two, and then the nucleus forms naturally. Next one, OKC, obviously bounced. This is Josh Giddey and Gilgeous Alexander development season again. I think SGA has a chance to be an all-star. I think he might just miss out on that because they're going to suck. They're not going to win many games. Josh Giddey will obviously get thrown to the fire and play a huge amount of minutes, which is great for him individually. I don't think they'll win more than 20, maybe 25 games pro if they're lucky. I think they'll be in the 20s. They have a lot of assets. They have a lot of picks. OKC, we know they love to stockpile draft picks, and they do a lot of things and, think outside the grain. They make a lot of chess moves long term. So my question would be is, knowing they're going to be bad this season, do they just run the course bad, develop, or do they make a move hedging towards the off season where they can bring in a star because they've got the the assets to do so, or are they just going to go straight, build with this young core and draft right and build that way? What do you think?
I think they're bounced to obviously, and to answer your question, I think that they're not thinking of like that yet. I don't think they're thinking about acquiring a star. Even if they could, they're really not in a position to sustain it, to sustain anything right now. They've got all these young guys they're trying to really figure out. They gotta develop Giddey. They gotta develop, Pokusevsky. I'll call him AP, the foreman. That's very inconsistent for them. Obviously, you got SGA doing his thing and trying to develop, and I think he'll be a borderline all-star player. So for them, I think they're just trying to, I think they'd want to, in the next 2 years, probably try to get as high a pick as they can. I don't think that those teams are going to bottom out the other guys that they've got pick swaps and things with. Maybe Houston. I'm not sure their situation with their pick. And the Clippers, obviously, they own a lot of those picks. So, finish bad. Play these guys hard. They're going to get beat. Try to get in the top 3 pick wise. See what happens with those Clipper and Houston Rockets picks that you have, and then just probably for the next couple of years. Again, even if you got a superstar and used your picks, why would you do it? You got low salary. SGA makes a lot, but most of the other guys in the roster really don't make much money. So they could just sort of milk this as much as they can and then try to get as many assets drafted in the next couple of years. And then you add on your salary. Then you'll have to extend a couple of these rookies and move forward, similar to what they did when they were drafted in 07 and 07, 08, and trying to develop their team with Westbrook and Durant and those guys and Jeff Green. I think that they're going to take their time. They're not going to move the needle salary wise, and then they'll make a big splash probably in the next couple of years as far as acquiring free agents and trades and things like that, as well as the young players that they develop. So yeah, they're going to be probably bottom 3 team wise, record wise, in my opinion, and they're going to try to challenge for that number 1 pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll stay put the next season. It's just going to be an ugly one for them. They're not going to win much games, and they will continue to retool young. The Golden State Warriors, obviously playoff bound. I think they've retooled pretty well. Poole has been a dramatic improver, which a lot of people didn't see to this extent. With the loss of Clay, I think his improvement is going to be massive for them. I think they're capable of going deep. I think they really have a top 4 chance with this roster, staying healthy, even without Clay. And then Clay obviously getting healthier post the new year. The Bielitsa acquisition, I think, was great. It brings a 5-man that can handle the ball, but can also shoot the 3. So you put him next to Draymond. The floor's not as congested if you've got a natural 5 that can't shoot 3s next to Draymond. So I think that's a no-brainer. The Iguodala acquisition, I think, is good. Just knows the guys, fits in so well, not going to cause any problems. A lot comes down to the Wiseman development, seeing where his injury is first and foremost, and then just the development of where and how they play him in that system will be interesting, because they like to go Draymond Green at the 5. Bielitz has obviously played himself into some minutes now at the 5 with the way he shoots the 3 ball and passes the ball. They have a lot of different lineups they can go to, and I think that's when they're the most dangerous, when they can go kind of bigger, they can go smaller, they can go a shooting lineup. So I like the versatility of their roster. You factor all that in with Clay being healthy post New Year, I think they're a top 4 team, bro. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they're going to compete for the 4 and 5. I think that them and Dallas, even though Dallas, obviously early on haven't played well, they haven't played great, in the last game and what have you. But I think that they're going to battle Dallas for 4-5. And you'll probably see that matchup at the 4-5 spot in the playoffs. I like what they have, obviously, with Steph and Clay coming back and Draymond. And, Wiggins can give you 16 to 19 a night, even though he's not the most consistent player. Otto Porter, I like. Jordan Poole's gotten better. I think Moses Moody, second half of the season, you're probably going to see a little bit of consistency in him. He's obviously just a rookie. I don't know what Kuminga's going to do yet, but Wiseman, I think he'll make a splash if he could play some minutes and develop and stay healthy. And obviously, Will Bielitsa doing well. I like this team. Obviously, they just, they still got to get used to each other with Poole playing bigger minutes, and and Wiseman's got to get healthy. What's going on with Wiseman anyway? I forgot.
Wasn't it something with his knee or quad or something like that? I'm not 100% positive, to be honest with you. I thought it was something with his leg.
I think so. I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to be out for. But hey, look, you got Steph, you got that whole deal going, and when Clay comes back, it's probably going to be a little rusty when it comes back. So you probably won't see them until mid-February, really, or early March, really start to click, in my opinion, just to get him going and get his legs under him. And I like I said, I think they'll challenge 4-5, and they could probably make a little bit of a splash in the playoffs, at least maybe win a round. I think that Dallas Golden State series will be very interesting if they do match up. So we'll see, but I definitely think they're playoff bound, and I think some of the younger players like Poole's going to have his ups and downs, and Moody's probably going to be inconsistent for a little bit. I don't know if Kuminga would crack the rotation as of yet, but who knows? And then you got guys like Iguodala and Porter Jr. So, yeah, it would be interesting to see. Like I said, I think that it'll be an interesting year for them, and I think they have a chance to, like I said, have home court in the playoffs, or at least be that 4-5.
Wiseman tore meniscus in April, had surgery to repair it. He's rumored to be back on the training floor this week, this Friday, at full speed. So you'd assume probably 2 weeks to a month of full training before he's actually playing a game. So they'll probably see him, hopefully before Christmas sometime, they say. So that'll be interesting to see where he fits in with all that, whether they ease him back slowly. But I think, I have some bias because obviously I know the guys there, but I think they're going to have a very good year in Golden State. I think there seems to be a bit of calm around Draymond and the group, and it just seems like they're kind of accelerating towards having a good season. So watch that space. The LA Clippers, playoff bound, obviously. Kawhi is the elephant in the room health wise now. He's a year in, what is it, April? He did it in April, May, didn't he? Playoffs. So yeah, he'd be, but it wasn't. They said it wasn't a full tear, so who knows? These things, ACLs can sometimes take longer when they're not a full tear than they can when they're a full tear, believe it or not. But who knows if he'll be back? That's a big question mark. I mean, Reggie Jackson is probably their genuine number 2 threat right now, scoring wise. I think he had a great playoffs for him. But he's going to be their number 2 guy after Paul George, in my opinion. They do have Bledsoe in the lineup. They're better defensively, but I think they're worse offensively. I just don't think they have enough shooting around Paul George right now. with Bledsoe in the lineup for big minutes. Does Mann continue his development? He had a great playoffs. He hasn't started the season fantastically, but he's surging upwards, albeit slowly. He needs to have a really good year for them to continue to be better. But they all come down to health, in my opinion. If they're a healthy team, they'll have a chance to be in the mix somewhere in the middle of the playoffs. They're bound. But, if Kawhi can somehow, perform a miracle with his knee and get back towards the end of the season, they have a chance to make a bit more noise in the playoffs. But yeah, I see them as a playoff bound team, probably second round, roughly around there again, and out pro. Yeah,
it'll be interesting. Obviously, see what happens with Kawhi. I like this team because they've been together a little bit, through last year. Bledsoe's obviously new, but, I like their toughness, with I like that Jackson Bledsoe lineup. Bledsoe doesn't really provide you shooting, but he could defend. He's good in transition. He can straight line drive you. I like Marcus Morris. I don't know if they may, it'll be interesting how their offense works, but I like them. They're solid. I love Zubac. Then you get Terrence Mann and Batum. I don't know what's going on with Ibaka. I don't know if it's still his back from last year or whatever. And then, guys like Kennard and, Kennard could help you. Winslow could help you a little bit. Obviously they got no chance, trying to get into multiple rounds if they don't have Kawhi in. And I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, but I don't know if you want to be rushing him back. If he's going to be there at the later of the year, you might as well just, call it a year. Everybody's safe. In the NBA, it's all about keeping your job and keeping that check coming every 2 weeks. I mean, obviously you got to get a pass from general manager to coach as far as not having Kawhi and going deep in the playoffs. I don't expect them to win a round because I don't think they're going to get home court advantage in that first round. So I think they're probably 1 and out. If Kawhi does come back, you're probably looking at a late year comeback. So, who knows? Now, again, I'm not a fucking doctor, so I'm not going to try to guess. But I don't think this team's good enough. They're good. They'll probably be 5, 6, 7. I don't think they'll be playing. I think they'll be a little bit above that. They'll probably be 5 or 6, but I don't see them advancing without Kawhi in there and, Kawhi for an extended period of time, trying to play. So, they're a good team, but without Kawhi, I think it'll be a problem.
Yeah, one of the best players in the NBA. You lose him, any team's going to struggle. The LA Lakers, their neighbors, playoff bound. I think they're going to be a junky playoff bound team, bro. I don't think they're going to be as good as people think. Obviously, we've got the body of work we've seen the last 2 games with all their issues already, but the roster just doesn't seem to fit well for me. You bring in Russell Westbrook, who's a guy that's had an all-time high usage on most teams that he's been on the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Then you've got LeBron, who wants the ball in his hands to play make. Then you've got Anthony Davis. It just does not seem to fit for me. They have a lot of veterans that you can say, well, they need to buy in, they need to play their role for the betterment of the team. But Westbrook's most useful is with the ball in his hands, getting triple doubles up and down the court. I don't think you're going to see that with LeBron also wanting to be a similar impact player, right? So that's interesting. Their age, I think what hurts them about the age is I don't think they have enough of that youthful energy that will play hard every night. We're talking about the Clippers. They've got a couple of young guys that will still come in and battle no matter what, or whoever it is, even the Golden State Warriors with the Poole and a few other guys. They've got guys that will come in and battle for their minutes, right? The Lakers kind of have a bunch of veterans that are established. They know their role and they're just going to play their role, and they're not going to give you much above their role, in my opinion. So I think some of that youthfulness is going to be a hindrance to them. I think they could have really valued 2 or 3 of those young, energetic, chirpy guys on the court. I don't know how you see it, but look, I think they'll still be there somewhere, second round, I think, but it just doesn't look like a roster that fits well unless they make some changes, going into the trade deadline, pro.
Yeah, I don't think they really have many assets to move to really make those changes, to be honest with Bogues. I think what they really need to do offensively, obviously, it's a little clunky. It's only 2 games in. I'm not really worried about, their first 2, although some of the things, there are some red flags. Like defensively is the biggest thing. Like LeBron and AD have to step up more defensively. Like, LeBron's getting cut on. There's a lot of mental mistakes. Look, he's one of the smartest players ever to play the game. So, it's probably just more of a like early season thing and not really picking it up until later in the year. Anthony Davis, AD's got to play harder defensively. He's got to be more in tune defensively. It seemed like, not that he's given up defensively and not playing, but it's mostly just he's not, he showed some flashes last night early in the Phoenix game about, stepping up on pick and rolls, trying to really be a rim protector, but then there's a lot of mental lapses and just, again, it's early season, so maybe they're just they're on the honeymoon sort of deal, but they got to really step up defensively. They don't have those like great defenders on ball, but off ball stuff, they really got to start being in tune what they're doing on pick and roll coverages and off the ball and, getting lobbed on and dunked on and straight line drive and cut, so defensively, they really got to lock in and say, you know what, we are a good team. We got a lot of talent. We got talent obviously in our top three, but we got to really buckle down defensively and really be on the same page. And that whole fight on a scuffle on the sideline, whatever you want to call it. I mean, obviously, people are going to overplay that. That stuff happens. Problem is, it usually happens in practice or it happens when the cameras don't see it. So, I'm not really worried about that. But
yeah, I don't see that as a big deal at all. I mean, it is what it is. But what I see a big deal is you have Westbrook out there who's not a three-point shooter. They always have either DeAndre or Dwight in there who's not a three-point shooter. LeBron likes to have spacing. Well, you've lost a lot of spacing right there, so I just don't know how they can play some of those guys together. I think they just need more shooting out there, and Westbrook's not a three-point shooter. So every given possession, you've got DeAndre or Dwight's guy sitting in the paint, and then you've got Westbrook's essentially clogging the paint. I don't know how much longer LeBron is okay with that. So they have to, can they make changes? I mean, they can't bench Westbrook. They might need to go smaller in the other aspect and start a shooting 5-man, but it's just a clunky fit, bro. I just don't see that they have enough shooting to.
Yeah. DeAndre's probably going to be the guy, in my opinion, probably to take a back seat. Dwight, they probably like coming off the bench to rebound and things. And play AD at more of a shooting 5.
He hates the 5. AD hates the 5 because he doesn't like wrestling because he gets hurt. So it's noted. People know.
Doubt.
Yeah, so they're in some. That's what I mean. That's why they signed DeAndre and Dwight. People question why you didn't need two of the same kind of players is because AD does not like playing the 5. It's well noted. So I think for them to succeed, he needs to be the 5. You can put Melo at the 4, and then you can play Russ with LeBron and maybe another 3-point shooter. But it's just interesting to watch from afar.
Yeah, and then the ISO and offensively, there's ISO. Why don't they take a page out of Golden State's book? Run split action, cutting, moving. I know they're older. Don't get me wrong. No doubt about it. But you got to have some movement. You just can't throw it in AD on the left block and let him operate. You can't have LeBron just back you down from the 3-point line and shoot fadeaways all day. You're not going to win that way. You're not going to win big playoff games that way. They're not that good to do that. Their team's just not that good to do it. They got to move the ball. They got to put 2 on the ball constantly, and they got to kick, and they got to swing and get open shots. They're not a good shooting team, like you said. They're going to be, teams could just, don't have to close out all the way to you just because they don't have that shooting. So LeBron's going to be facing, contested shots, most of his shots, and same thing with AD. They're not helping off of some of these guys, and even if they do, you're not going to be able to punish them for open shooters. So, and then if you take a Bazemore out of the lineup or you take an Ellington out of the lineup, that's, like Ellington, that's another shooter. Bazemore's never really been a great shooter. I mean, he's been inconsistent. Tucker Horton's not a shooter. Kendrick Nunn doesn't really have a high basketball IQ, but he can shoot a little bit. Yeah, and then they got Avery Bradley who could guard, but he's not really a shooter. So, yeah, and then you got Ariza, who knows?
The young kid, what's his name? Is it Reeves? Reeves? Is that his name?
Reeves, the white kid.
Yeah,
what do they call him?
He's probably their hardest playing guy. He's diving on loose balls in preseason, so he might fit that Delhi type role that LeBron always has one of those guys, Delhi, Caruso, one of those hustle guys that'll just want to, he might find some minutes with all this. But it seemed like your dog agreed with your Lakers take as well in the background there, pro.
Yeah.
that was your dog this time, right? Wasn't your kid again?
Yeah, that was the dog. That wasn't the kid. I didn't put the kid in the kennel. I need to put that dog, I need to put that dog in the fucking trade-in block. I'll tell you that. Get that fucking dog out of my house. I apologize for it.
No. I think he was just disappointed with the Lakers take. But moving on, Phoenix Suns, playoff bound, obviously, runners-up last season. They'll be in the mix for the top 4. In my opinion, obviously, that's pretty obvious. But I don't know if they repeat last season's run. They've upgraded a little bit. They got Shamet and McGee. It's just going to be a lot of CP3 and Devin Booker again for them to have a chance. And you're relying on an ever aging CP3, which is playing very, very well. Don't get me wrong, hell of a player, and Booker obviously. But I don't know. I don't. If I have to call it right now, I don't think they're a finals team this season. I think they maybe go conference finals. Would be their deepest, but they're still solid. They're fun to watch. They're very, very team orientated. They play well together, but I just don't think they improved much on their roster to take that next step to get a championship, pro.
Bogues, like if Golden State had all their guys from day one, if Kawhi was playing, if the Lakers weren't a complete shit show, like I would say, yeah, for sure they won't be a finals team. I just think there are too many good teams. But I just don't see that team in the West right now that you're going to say, oh, 1,000% they're in. Especially you might say one. You could name one. Like if Utah's your team, if Denver's your team, what have you. But there's not really two teams that you could say definite. They do play really well together. You don't know what's going to happen injury-wise. They've been together. They got a good coach. They've obviously had some success together. So I could see them getting into the finals. I don't think they have enough if Brooklyn is full speed or Milwaukee's full speed. With their team as far as injury is concerned. But I do like the way they play. They play together. They move the ball. They haven't played great so far, obviously, but it's so early in the year that they can get better. But I think they'll be in the top 4. I don't know what they're going to do, obviously, but I could see them in the top 4 competing for that conference finals at least, and we'll call it that and see what happens. But hey, look, you got Paul and Booker and Bridges is playing well, and Crowder's got a little bit more confidence, from last year, and you got Campaign talking shit to everybody from fucking LeBron James to the guy that sells the nachos. Yeah. So, he's pretty fun to watch. It'll be interesting. That bench is good. We'll see if it can hold up. We'll see if Nader and some of these other guys, Shamit, Saric and things like that. So it'll be an interesting season for these guys. I could see them getting back to the finals. I don't think they can win it, but I could definitely see them getting to the finals.
Yeah, I think they'll be solid. I'm just going to go against the grain and say they're not going to make the finals. They'll make the conference finals at best. All right, next one, Sacramento Kings. Now, I have them bounced. I think they could sneak a playing game maybe, but to me, they're the Sacramento Kings of the last 10, 15 years. They're just in the middle of the park. Don't know whether they're going to be a playoff team or a lottery team. They're kind of having that battle. They've got some youth and talent. They have some drama already with Bagley wanting out, his agent causing some issues. Harrison Barnes started the season well. That's been a notable improvement by Harrison's standards. He's played very, very well these last couple of games. But yeah, I think they're middle of the park. I just don't see them making any noise. So they're one of the teams that could be fringe in, but I've got them as fringe out. But they just haven't sold me enough on what they're trying to build there in Sacramento, pro.
Yeah, I'm not. I think they can make a run for 10. I don't know if they're going to get there. They're just not good enough. They don't have that experience yet. They got some talented guys. Harrison's putting up 30 and 12, and he's on both of my fantasy teams. So God bless you, brother. Keep that fucking pace up. But I just don't see it. I see them probably faltering at the end of the year, and probably falling at it a little bit. The whole Bagley thing's so fucking overblown. It's not even funny. The thing is now that everybody's going to take the Ben Simmons route, right? Everyone's going to, complain in the media. They're going to try to start a shitstorm. Marvin Bagley's a good player. He's a solid player. He's as good as like a Morris twin, which is a good player. He could start on some teams, rotation player on most teams, but he's just, he doesn't do anything great. He's like 14-7. And, you're yelling like this guy's fucking Karl Malone and you're not starting Karl Malone. He's okay. He's a good player, but, it is what it is. He's been inconsistent. He's been hurt. He's like a 14-6 guy, 14-7 guy, but he's just not one of those guys, I like Fox. Fox is really good. Sometimes he teases you because he looks really good one night. Obviously he's a young kid. But I just don't see it. Like Halliburton, everybody's crazy about it. I think he's a good player. I don't think he does anything great. Harrison Barnes is solid. He's always going to be that guy who can give you 20 and 7. Obviously he's a pro's pro. And then Rashawn Holmes is Rashawn Holmes can give you like 10, 12 and 10 or whatever. He's active big. And then you got Buddy Hield coming off the bench. They just don't have enough. They don't have that. They don't really have a real like true number one, proven number one yet. They've got a bunch of guys that are good, but they don't have that proven superstar. They've got good players, but they haven't had any body of work to tell you, yeah, they're definitely going to be a playoff team. They'll make a push for 10. Maybe they'll get in, maybe they won't. I don't see anything that will tell me otherwise that I could totally trust these guys for 82 games.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think they'll potentially have an 8-game win streak and then have an 8-game losing streak. Like they got that kind of team that can just be so hot and cold, and that's what we've seen the last 10 odd years in Sacramento. So I think that'll continue the same, unfortunately, for Sacramento fans. All right, Dallas, they're playoff bound, obviously. I think it's all on Luka, as we know, and I think it's even more all on Luka. I think they're watching their last couple of games. It is early in the season. They got a new head coach. It's still kind of, their offense still, we don't know what they are. A lot of ISO. They kind of sleepwalk through a lot of things early, and then it all falls on Luka getting their buckets. And they came back in today's game. They were down pretty big against Toronto. They came back and won off Luka's bat, basically, and Tim Hardaway Jr. hit some big shots. But for me, Kristaps Porzingis he still coasts a fair bit, I think. He's getting more touches now. He's getting those 18-foot post-ups. I think Jason Kidd had that little powwow in Latvia with him, and they hugged it out and figured out that we'll get you some more touches on the block and keep you happy. But he just seems like he coasts a fair bit, and he was a very, very talented defensive player in New York. Just his length and athleticism can cause a lot of problems. We've seen spurts of it in Dallas, but it just seems like it's all determined on touches offensively. If he's feeling himself offensively, he's getting touches, he's making shots, he's a really good defender and he's engaged. When he's not getting those touches and not involved offensively, it seems like he doesn't give a shit defensively. That's kind of the take that I've noticed watching him in Dallas the last couple of seasons. Pressure's on J. Kidd a little bit, in my opinion. Most people think this is probably a second round at minimum team on the roster they've got now. Luka's got another year. Kristaps is off the reservation and brought in a little bit more because Carlisle's gone. I made a few little tweaks. I think Reggie Bullock's a good 3-and-D guy for him. I like his game. I think he fits in perfectly for what Luka Doncic and that team is, because he doesn't need the ball. He's a knockdown 3-point shooter and he'll guard their best player if he needs be, so he fits in well next to Hardaway Jr. But yeah, I think the pressure's starting to build a little bit on Dallas. I think they need to get to that second round at minimum. Will they? They haven't been out of the first round in a number of years, as we know, under Rick Carlisle. So it'll be interesting to see what your thoughts are as deep as they go, and what we need to watch out for, bro.
Yeah, it's funny how people react to this stuff. Like, you read the media after the first game, they want to fire J. Kidd. It's funny. J. Kidd's the savior before the tip of the game one, right? J. Kidd's the savior. Kristaps is, he's back to old Kristaps, dominating all this stuff. I never use the word unicorn. I hate that fucking term, so I'll never say it in a regular sentence. But they were saying, oh, he's great. Now after the first game, oh, same old Kristaps, fire J. Kidd, he's a joke. I mean, it's just funny, like how people overreact to that. I think Porzingis is going to be fine. I think he probably still doesn't trust it, because of what happened there in the last couple of years with him. In his sort of how they used him, and how the NBA is. Everybody, like in the beginning of the year, it's going to be different. It's going to be different. And then it ends up being the same. So I think he's probably just waiting this out a little bit just to make sure that he's still going to be an intricate part of the team. Look, that first game with Atlanta, they got blown out, but look, they were on the road. I'm not making excuses, but they were on the road. Atlanta played very well. Collins killed them, Trae Young didn't really have a great game, but then he heated up. Capella killed him on the boards. They were just lob after lob after lob, and it just was a tough night for him. They didn't make shots. Everybody was killing them for taking mid-range shots. I don't give a fuck. They took decent shots. They had good looks. They got chased off the line. They just couldn't make shots. Dorian Finney-Smith didn't shoot it well. Hardaway got fucked up a little bit in the game, got stitches or whatever, and he didn't have a great game. Kristaps didn't ever. No one really had a great game for Dallas. I think the best player on the floor was Jalen Brunson. But you're not going to have that every night. I think Porzingis will be fine. I think you got to continue to post him. You got to continue to play him out of the high post, let him face up and be a threat, let him pick and pop. He's not a great shooter. Everybody continues to wait for him to be Dirk Nowitzki. He's been an inconsistent shooter his whole career. He's shown, He's shown flashes of being a decent shooter, but he's not really this Dirk Nowitzki type player. He's his own type. He can drive it. He's got some energy coming, putting the ball on the floor and getting to the rim. He can, pick and roll. He can run to the rim in transition. He could do some different things. Not a good passer. He's a good defensive player. I agree with you. I think, and you know how this is in the NBA, like, you morph sometimes into thinking that your offense should dictate your defense, where they're two totally different things. Look, you got to make a difference on the defensive side with your length and your ability to protect the rim and do some things. And then offensively, you got to try to be the best you can. Some nights your defense is going to suck and your offense is going to get you through the night, and then vice versa. When your shot's not falling, you got to find other ways to do things. I think that's the problem with Porzingis the last couple of years, of how he uses in Dallas. Like, they just put him at the 3-point line. They stopped posting him up. And if he wasn't hitting threes, he couldn't do anything else. Now, if you put him at the high post, you could roll him to the rim. You could face him up and drive him. You can, face up and shoot. He can do some different things. He's not Dirk Nowitzki, where you could just throw it down to him on the block and he could back you in and make a play. He needs to face you up. He needs to be on the move. And then obviously the health thing. I think they're a good team, Bogues, because they've been together. The core of their team has been together for a long time. Guys like, Hardaway, Finney-Smith, Dwight Powell, Brunson, Kleber. Those guys have all been together for a while. They don't really need the ball in their hand. Besides, Hardaway needs the ball a little bit. But all these guys that are like unselfish guys, they know how to play together. They know that Doncic and Porzingis are the show, and those guys are trying to fill in spots. I think they can win around, even though they were bad the first night. They played better. They won on the road tonight in Toronto. They'll be okay. I think they'll be like they're battling for that 4-5 seed. I think they can win around because I believe in Doncic, obviously, and I believe in their secondary players the most. And, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think there's a little pressure on Jay Kidd because obviously, he's replacing Carlisle, and there's a lot of, there's been a lot of pressure on him to win. I don't know. We'll see. I think he'll be okay. I don't know the guy, but, I think he's got enough talent to win. It's not like he needs to grind out games coaching. This team's got some talent. They just got to make shots, with Bullock and, Kleber, Bullock, Finney-Smith. Those guys got to bail these guys out. The one thing I will notice under Kidd is you notice that guys they're not like robots out there. They're not shooting. Like, they're not afraid to shoot. Like, Powell's not afraid to shoot threes. Dorian Finney-Smith's not afraid to shoot threes. Kleber's not afraid. Like, they play a little bit more free offensively, I think, under Kidd, for one reason or another. And maybe it's just experience. Maybe it's another year. But it just seems like these guys are a little bit free. I think they're going to play well in spurts this year, and I think they'll challenge for the second round.
Yeah, that's about where I've got them, so we'll see. Memphis, trending upward. I think they're playoff bound, whether it's a play-in or playoffs. I think they'll be in the top 10. Yeah, they're definitely getting better. Morant, he's continuing to grow. Just athleticism and the way he plays a game, I think he's just naturally going to get better and better. The Steven Adams thing, I mean, does he fit? Who knows where that all lies. I mean, there are some bigs in the West where he'll need to play minutes, but I'm still not sure about that fit completely. Dylan Brooks, does he continue his good playoff run into this season? I think that's the other one that a lot of people didn't expect him to have the playoffs that he had. He played very, very well against the Utah Jazz, even though they got bounced in that first round. They actually pushed the Utah Jazz in a few of those games too, which was fun to watch as essentially one of the last seeds from the play-in. But they did really well, and I'm excited to see how they grow because I think they'll be a pretty competitive team. Jackson's a good player as well, so they have a decent roster to make some noise. I think they'll be playoff bound. They'll be towards the bottom. The bottom half of the West, but they'll be in there somewhere, bro.
I like the way they are. I like their team. I do like the Adams pickup. You sort of trade in, like rearranging the deck chairs of the Titanic with him and Valanciunas. Like, you could have one or the other, but they're both going to rebound. They're both really not great scorers, but they're going to rebound. They're going to be tough. They're going to protect John Morant. Sort of that, Bill Lambert type player that's going to protect your guy. They got shooters. I like Brooks. I like Bane. They're solid players. I'll be interested to see, like, John Morant's a superstar. He's going to be, a player that could be a perennial All-Star Hall of Fame type player if he stays healthy. I think he could be really good. And, the question is, like, how good is Jaren Jackson? We really didn't see him last year because he was hurt. That's going to be a big part of if they could sort of make a challenge in the playoffs to get out of the first round. Maybe they are a player. They're probably going to be a play-in team with 9 or 10, and then, 8, 9, or 10. And see if they could, like, get into the top 8. I like the group. I think they're young. I think they fight. Their bench is okay. I like Kyle Anderson. I like Tyus Jones. Xavier Tillman's played decent at times. But they're going to probably go as far as, like, Jaren Jackson's going to take them because they need that second guy. I mean, Brooks could score. He could shoot. He's not like an ISO type guy. I don't know the type of player Jackson is yet. He had a good rookie year. So, obviously, I just haven't really seen him do much more, obviously because of the injuries and things. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. They're an exciting team. I like watching them. They're good in pick and roll. They got good role players. They got decent shooting. It'll be interesting. I think they're playoff bound. I can't really see if them getting out of a round, possibly getting into the top 8, but probably besides that, I can't see them going past that.
Yeah, I'd agree. They'll be in there somewhere, but they're not going to dominate, but I think they'll continue to grow and get better. The New Orleans Pelicans, I've got them bounced. I think the Zion health issue, we actually broke early that he was heavily overweight. That's made the news over the last week. We spoke about that weeks ago. I got a friendly tip that he was over 300 pounds, and someone said way over to me. He's potentially way over 300 pounds. So that's a huge issue for them. He's their franchise guy, and they're somewhat stuck whether they build around him or does he walk away in a couple of years, whether he signs that supermax and just leaves. I just don't like their roster. I think their roster's a strange one. It doesn't fit that well. New coach. I think they're half rebuild with Zion 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the door. I will say this: if Ingram continues to grow and becomes an all-star, they have a chance to make the playoffs. So if he becomes one of those all-star players, they might have a chance to scrape in for one of those playing spots. But as of today, I have them playoff bounds. I just don't think they have enough on that roster that fits in well with each other, and they got a new head coach and all that kind of stuff. And the Zion thing, like I said, I mean, it's going to become a distraction eventually, and obviously carrying that kind of weight coming back from an injury, even if he does come back healthy, there's every chance in the world he gets hurt again by carrying 20, 30 extra pounds. With how explosive he is already, he's probably not the smartest thing to do, bro.
They're definitely going to be bounced, in my opinion. I don't see any upside with this team at all. Zion, for as much of a talent as he is, like, how much does he really love basketball? Being a professional so far. Now, he's so early in his career. Obviously, he's going to, he should be better. And at some point, something's going to click and say, you know what, I can't allow myself to be 300 pounds. Like, he doesn't want to be there. That's obvious, that whole shit show, what's going on there. And then he doesn't want to be there. He hasn't want to be there since his rookie year. He hasn't liked it. That's been obvious. And, his weight fluctuation, his injury issues. He's not really a skilled basketball player, although he's the most productive non-skilled player that I've ever seen. He doesn't shoot it. He handles it okay. He's not really a passer, but I don't think you should really try to build around him. Now, he'd be look, they've got all the cards right now, in the short term. No player has ever said no to a max extension out of a rookie deal. Now, players have forced their way out of town before their extension came up, like Porzingis. So, like, he's one of the only guys rookie-wise that was sort of at that level where he's going to get a max contract that didn't sign a max extension with their team, the original draft team. So he can do that. He could try to force his way out. The problem is he's still under his rookie scale contract. So if you're trying to get major assets coming back, it's going to be really tough to do that, without him having really a heavy salary, because then you have to put multiple players out the door, and then you got to have salaries match up and things like that, and depending on what you're trying to bring back. I think it's just a tough situation. They don't have a lot of talent on the team. I like Ingram. I think Ingram's, I don't really have the list in front of me, but I got to see he's at least a borderline all-star player, top 35 player in the league. He's a very good player. Valanciunas is a very good enforcer, rebounder, good pro, tough guy. Devontae Graham's just okay. Alexander Walker, just okay. They don't really have anything that they could really, say, yeah, these guys are real, these guys are it for us. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't see this ending well. I think, he'll either sign his extension and get out of there, in year
Yeah,
one
that's
of the
what's going to
extension.
happen. 100%. He's not turning that money down.
Yeah.
We've seen his story before. He's going to say he wants to be in New Orleans, happy to sign this deal, and within a year he's going to be looking to go somewhere else.
But he's got to step the fuck up too, this kid. Look, he's a young kid. I get it, but look, it's gonna start being year 7 for him, year 8 for him, year 9 for him. When's he gonna have a healthy year? When's he gonna actually be in shape all year? When's he gonna work on his shot to actually get that thing better? Look, as much as we want, I wanted to be like critical on Giannis' shot. Everything else was fine. He didn't shoot it well, but the guy's in great shape. He works his ass off, charismatic. He works, he plays great defense. He makes impact on both ends of the floor. And he couldn't really shoot. Now his shooting seems like it's stabilizing. This kid needs to really, when are you going to hang your hat on? Okay, all right, so if you're not a shooter and you're not really a ball handler, they want to compare him to LeBron James. I have no idea how the fuck you'd ever want to compare him to LeBron James. More like Jerome James with the weight, but not like LeBron James. He's got to hang his hat on something. If you're not going to be a shooter and you're not going to be a skilled player, then be in fucking shape. Come in shape. Forget about your hatred towards the organization. Be a pro. Kobe, he told me, look, when I wanted to be traded, right? And I definitely wanted, there was a time in my career I wanted out of LA. That's when that Chicago Bulls trade almost happened. It was within days of happening. But he goes, Mike, what I did, my hatred towards that situation at the time, I came in, I got my work in, I didn't let anything bother me. I got my work in, I had my routine in, never I was a pro to everybody. I was a little grumpy, but I was a pro to everybody. And then if they traded me, they traded me. But I wasn't going to give anybody a reason to say, you know what, Kobe ain't bringing it every day. And that's what that guy needs to do, because he hasn't done anything yet. He hasn't shown that he could bring his team into the playoffs and win. He hasn't shown that he can be consistently healthy. He hasn't shown that he can be consistently in shape. He hasn't shot the ball. But yeah, he averages 20 plus, and he's a beast without question. But he's got to, at some point, stop the excuses. The people around you, if it's family or agent or friends or whatever, don't listen anymore. Start getting in shape. Start taking this shit serious. And then look, if you've done everything, then you could say, you know what, I've done everything. What the fuck have you guys done on the organizational side? Because the organization hasn't done you many favors, and you haven't done yourself many favors. So one of you's got to fucking grow the fuck up and be a pro out of this thing and start doing your fucking job. I'm just tired of reading about it.
Yeah, it goes both ways, and that's what we see. Yeah, there needs to be a mix of both ways, and the weight things are controllable. So you got to come in. One thing you do as an athlete is you try to come into training camp in shape, and that tells you if you're committed or not. And when guys come overweight, it's not a good look.
And Zion and I are fellow fat guys, so he doesn't like when you call him fat, but because you're in shape. But he doesn't mind if I call him fat because I'm one of his people.
You're allowed to use the word because you're in the group, right?
Exactly, the F word.
Yeah. San Antonio Spurs. Now, this one for some people might be controversial. I'm going playoff bound, bro. I'm going playoff bound. Let me tell you why. I think they get a play-in game. I think the machine that is the Spurs will sneak in to a playoff play-in game. I think they're going to find ways to win games at home. And I think they have a young and energetic roster, which is something Pop hasn't had for a long, long time. Young, energetic. He can go to multiple lineups. They're not overly talented, but I just feel like they're going to steal some games at home, and that Spurs basketball is going to come into play at some point during the season where they string off a few wins they shouldn't. And I think they'll be a play-in team. Otherwise, you're looking at Sacramento, you're looking at a few of those other teams we spoke about that we have missing out. I think the Spurs are going to nab a play-in spot just by the grit of their teeth. Pro, what do you think?
Bogues, I agree. I think that they've got pros in their team. They've got winning players in their team. They've got guys like McDermott, who's I think is a winning player because he does some good things. DeJounte Murray and White, it's been a little bit up and down because of injuries and things, but they've been through the system now. They've got Portal. Portal is good. Keldon Johnson is a very good young player who's been developing every year. He's probably one of the best young players. I know they want to tout Murray and White there and Lonnie Walker. I think that Keldon Johnson is going to be a very, very good player. And then guys like Thaddeus Young, a very underrated pickup. I just think that they've got enough guys. And then let's not forget, They've got, I've got the marketing deal with Lawndale, so I've got people at courtside that's going to have lawnmowers once he starts getting some minutes, and we're going to fucking, we're going to really push the marketing for that fucking asshole. But I think they're good. They got good, they've got good players that could grind out a season. I don't think, I trust them to grind out a season more than I trust Sacramento to grind out a season. When push comes to shove, I think these guys can pull it together and win enough games to get them into that 9-10 spot, and get into the play-in. Now, what happens after that? Who the fuck knows? Talk to me at All-Star break. I'll give you a better assessment. But I think that going into it, I think that they got enough guys that can play. They got enough guys that know how to do the things that they need to do to win, and I think they can get into the 10 spot for sure.
They're not going to beat themselves. That's the thing. They're not overly talented. They're not overly whatever, but they're not going to beat themselves. And that's my exact reason why I've got them in is exactly what you said. I have more faith in them maintaining consistency than a Sacramento or a Minnesota, in my opinion, because I just think, the Spurs organization and the professionalism that they demand on a daily basis, I think that works itself out and they'll win enough games to be a playing team. Houston, lucky last, bounced. They're going to be very, very bad, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very bad.
Yeah, they're going to be rough.
They're in a full rebuild, obviously. Jalen Green, I like, from what I've seen so far, small sample size, young, athletic, can kind of move about the court pretty elegantly at times. Obviously, Porter Jr. can go both ways. He can be best guy on the court or he can throw a soup at you, so you got to be careful there. And then you got Christian Wood's development has just continued to climb. So they have some really good young pieces. They have a lot of picks coming up. They're similar to that OKC situation, in my opinion, where they got a lot of young assets. They're in it for the long haul with a full rebuild, but it will be ugly this season for them, bro.
Bogues, I'm checking out the Houston Rockets depth chart. They've got Jock Lawndale as their 5th center. Did he fucking get traded and we didn't know about it?
Where'd you see that?
I screenshot it. I'm going to send it to you. Right now, I'm sorry, Lawndale. You've been traded. Woj didn't even break this one. I'm going to break it before everybody. It at least says it on ESPN. They obviously fucked up. I just want to look at their depth chart so I'm not missing anybody. But they got Lawndale they got Jock as their 5th center. So,
jeez.
Congrats to Lawndale.
Yeah, there are some connections there with assistant coach Will Weaver and the national team. Maybe something's gone ahead and we don't know about it.
Well, maybe he took a left when he should have taken a right. The fucker ain't the smartest fucker on the planet. Maybe he just showed up to Houston's camp. Yeah. But I don't think they're going to go anywhere. They're way too young. They don't really, besides Gordon, they don't really have that pro that's going to really, they don't have enough good older players to sort of take those young guys to another level, nor do they want to be right now. Although they've got all those picks out in the wind with the trades they made. So it'll be interesting to see, what's going to happen with those things. But I like Jalen Green. I think he's played okay, a little inconsistent to be expected. But he'll get better. He's an offensive talent, but he has no idea about what it takes to be a pro yet. And it's going to take him some time. Their best asset in the roster is Steven Silas, their coach. He's really good, really smart guy, but they've got, they need a lot of help and it's going to take time. You got Jalen Green, you got Porter. Actually, the European kid's not bad too. Sengun. Is it okay. Alperen Sengun?
Decent.
Yeah, strong kid. He's averaging 8 and 5, 6'10" kid. I think they just drafted him 16th last year. So, in this past year's draft, they're going to be, they're playoff bounced. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league, but they'll be talented at times. They'll be good at times because they get up in the open court and run and do some things. But it's going to take some time, man. It's going to take.
Former Sydney King, Jason Tate there too. He's having a pretty decent start to the year, and he had a great year last season. So there are a few pieces I'll watch, but I think they're not going to win many games. It's just they're in a full rebuild, and we'll see how they go. Hopefully, the tank doesn't last 4 or 5 years like some of these tanking teams do. It can just be a 1 or 2 year tank and then they can get better, but we'll see. Team values, pro. That's our wrap. So we've done our Western Conference. That's our wrap.